We all want respect. That's normal. That's human. But somewhere along the way, you turned a preference into an absolute demand. You started telling yourself, people must respect me. They should appreciate me. They have to acknowledge my worth. And now, you're miserable. You're constantly disappointed. You're watching for every slight, every dismissal, every sign that you're not getting what you're owed. I've got news for you. You're not owed anything. And that's actually the most liberating truth you'll ever hear. Let me show you why. Look, I get it. You've been hurt. People have overlooked you, dismissed your ideas, treated you like you don't matter. And that pain is real. I'm not dismissing it. But here's what I'm going to do for you today. I'm going to show you why your strategy for getting respect is scientifically, psychologically, and practically wrong. You think the problem is other people, that they're rude, ignorant, or just don't see your value. But the real problem? It's the irrational beliefs you're carrying around in your head. Those beliefs create demands. Those demands create emotional disturbance. And that disturbance? It destroys the very thing you're seeking. By the end of this video, you're going to understand the 3 irrational beliefs that sabotage respect, the emotional trap that keeps you stuck, and the counterintuitive approach that actually makes people naturally respect you. This isn't feel-good fluff. This is rational emotive behavior therapy. I've tested this on thousands of people for over 50 years, and it works. So stick with me. This is going to challenge everything you believe about how respect works. Let's start with the hidden belief that's destroying you. You're operating from 3 irrational musts that create your suffering. First, people must respect me. Second, I must be treated fairly. Third, the world should recognize my worth. Now listen carefully. These aren't preferences. They're demands. And there's a huge difference. A preference sounds like this. I would really like respect. I prefer to be treated fairly. It would be nice if people recognize my worth. That's healthy. That's rational. But a demand? A demand sounds like this. I absolutely must have respect, or I can't stand it. People should treat me fairly, or they're horrible. The world has to recognize my worth, or something is terribly wrong. See the difference? One is flexible. The other is rigid. One disappoints you sometimes. The other destroys you constantly. Now, let me show you how this actually works in your brain. I call it the ABC model of emotion, and once you understand this, everything changes. A stands for activating event. That's what happens to you. Someone disrespects you. They ignore your email. They talk over you in a meeting. They don't invite you to something. Whatever. That's A. C stand for consequence. That's your emotional response. You feel rage. You feel humiliated. You feel worthless. You spiral into depression or explode in anger. That's C. Now here's what most people think. They think it causes C. They think the disrespect caused the anger. The event made me feel this way. They did this to me. Wrong. Dead wrong. And this is where people get stuck for their entire lives. Between A and C is B. B stands for belief system. That's what you're telling yourself about the event. And B is what actually causes C, not the event itself. Your belief about the event. Let me give you an example. 2 people get disrespected at work. Same event. Same A. Person 1 tells themselves, this is disappointing. I wish they treated me better. I'm going to address this calmly, or maybe just let it go because it's not worth my energy. That person feels mildly annoyed, but moves on. Person 2 tells themselves, they must not treat me this way. This is awful. This proves nobody respects me. I can't stand this. That person feels enraged, devastated, maybe even depressed for days. Same activating event. Completely different emotional consequences. Why? Different beliefs at B. So when you demand respect, here's what you're doing. You're creating a rigid belief system that says, I absolutely must be respected, when reality doesn't match that demand, and reality often won't. You experience intense emotional disturbance. Not just disappointment, not just sadness, but rage, depression, anxiety, humiliation. The bigger the gap between your demand and reality, the more you suffer. And here's the thing. You can't control reality. You can't control whether people respect you. But you can control B. You can control your beliefs. And that's where your power actually lives. Now let me show you why demanding respect is actually a form of unhealthy thinking. Because there's a huge difference between demandingness and preference. Healthy thinking sounds like this. I prefer respect, but I don't need it to survive. I like to be treated fairly, but I can handle it when I'm not. It's nice when people recognize my worth, but my worth doesn't depend on their recognition. That's flexible. That's based in reality. That acknowledges that you can't control other people. Unhealthy thinking sounds like this. I absolutely must have respect, or I'm worthless. People should treat me fairly, or they're terrible and the world is horrible. I need recognition, or I can't be happy. See how rigid that is? See how it sets you up for constant suffering? Because you've made your emotional well-being dependent on something you can't control. And here's where it gets really interesting. When you demand respect, you actually create a self-fulfilling prophecy. You become hyper-vigilant for disrespect. You start looking for it everywhere. Someone doesn't say good morning? Disrespect. Someone doesn't laugh at your joke? Disrespect. Someone gives feedback on your work? Disrespect. You interpret neutral actions as attacks. You see disrespect where none was intended. And then you respond with defensiveness or aggression. You get angry. You lecture people about how they should treat you. You demand apologies. You hold grudges. And guess what happens? People pull away from you. They avoid you. They stop engaging with you. And you've just created the very disrespect you feared. Your demand for respect pushed respect away. Let me tell you about a patient I worked with years ago. She came to me furious about her marriage. Her husband didn't respect her. He didn't appreciate everything she did. He didn't acknowledge her contributions. And she demanded he change. She would explode at him regularly. She would give him this silent treatment. She would threaten to leave. And you know what happened? He withdrew more and more. He started working late. He stopped communicating. The more she demanded respect, the less she got. So we worked on her beliefs. We challenged this idea that he must respect her. We examined where that belief came from and whether it made any sense. And slowly, she started to shift. She started to say, I prefer his respect, but I don't need it to survive. I can accept myself even if he doesn't fully appreciate me. And something amazing happened. She stopped demanding. She stopped attacking. She started focusing on her own self-respect. And guess what her husband did? He started moving toward her again. He started appreciating her, not because she demanded it, but because she stopped being desperate for it. Now you might be thinking, but Albert, are you saying I should just accept disrespect? Let people walk all over me? Absolutely not. And that's exactly what we need to talk about next, because there's a massive difference between demanding respect and commanding it. When you demand respect, you're essentially broadcasting something to the world. You're saying, I need your validation to feel worthy. And that broadcasts insecurity. People can smell that desperation from a mile away. And insecurity repels respect. Think about it. Think about someone you deeply respect. Do they go around demanding that people respect them? Do they get defensive at every little slight? Do they constantly remind you of their credentials? Do they need you to validate their worth? No, they just are who they are. They're confident in themselves. They don't need your agreement to know their value. And that confidence, that's what naturally draws respect. Let me break down what demanding respect actually looks like in practice, because I want you to see yourself in this. First, you over-explain your credentials. You drop your degrees, your achievements, your experience into conversations. You remind people why they should respect you. Second, you get defensive at minor slights. Someone questions your idea, and you take it as a personal attack. Someone forgets to include you, and you spiral. Third, you name drop to prove your importance. You mention important people you know or places you've been. Fourth, you interrupt to assert dominance. You can't let someone else have the spotlight. You need to prove you're the smartest person in the room. Fifth, you require constant acknowledgement. You need people to praise you, thank you, recognize you. Without it, you feel invisible and worthless. Now I want you to be really honest with yourself. Do you do any of these things? Because here's what these behaviors are actually saying. They're saying, I don't actually believe I'm worthy, so I need you to convince me. They're screaming insecurity. And people don't respect insecurity. They might pity it. They might be annoyed by it, but they don't respect it. Real confidence doesn't need constant validation. Real confidence is quiet. It doesn't need to prove itself because it already knows its worth. Let me tell you about the connection between confidence and respect, because this is crucial. Confident people have something you don't have yet. They have what I call unconditional self-acceptance. They accept themselves as fallible human beings regardless of performance, approval, or achievement. They don't need you to respect them because they already respect themselves. And when you're around someone like that, what happens? You naturally respect them. You're drawn to their stability. You trust their judgment. You value their presence. Why? Because they're not desperate. They're not needy. They're not performing for your validation. They're just being themselves. Compare that to demanding respect. When you demand respect, you're focusing on getting something external. You've made your self-worth dependent on others' opinions. And that's exhausting. You're constantly monitoring how people treat you. You're constantly scanning for signs of disrespect. Every interaction becomes a test. Did they respect me enough? Did they appreciate me enough? Did they see my worth? And any criticism, any disagreement, any sign that they don't fully respect you, that destroys you. Because you've tied your worth to their opinion. You've given them all the power over how you feel about yourself. Here's the reality principle I need you to hear. Some people won't respect you. Ever. No matter what you do. No matter how much you demand it. No matter how worthy you actually are. They just won't. Maybe they're jealous. Maybe they're biased. Maybe they're just not capable of seeing your value. Maybe they're having a bad day or a bad decade. It doesn't matter. The point is, you don't need universal respect to live a fulfilling life. You really don't. The demand for it is what creates suffering. The acceptance of reality is what creates peace. Let me tell you a story from my own life. When I first started developing rational emotive behavior therapy back in the 1950s, the psychoanalytic establishment hated it. I mean, really hated it. They call my ideas simplistic. They said I was destroying real psychology. They dismissed me as a charlatan. They didn't respect me or my work. Now I could have demanded they respect me. I could have spent my energy trying to convince them, arguing with them, getting angry at them. But what would that have accomplished? Nothing. Instead, I focused on the work. I treated patients. I trained therapists. I published research. I proved that REBT worked. And eventually, over time, respect came. Not because I demanded it, but because I earned it through results. And even then, some people still didn't respect me. And you know what? That's fine. I didn't need their respect to know my work was valuable. So, if demanding respect doesn't work, what does? That's where things get really interesting, because the path to genuine respect requires you to do something that feels completely backward. You have to stop focusing on getting respect from others and start focusing on giving respect to yourself. This is what I call unconditional self-acceptance, and it's the foundation of everything. Unconditional self-acceptance means you accept yourself as a fallible human being regardless of your performance, regardless of others' approval, regardless of your achievements or failures. Now, this is hard for people to grasp because we're taught from childhood to rate ourselves. We're taught that we're good if we succeed and bad if we fail. We're worthy if people like us and worthless if they don't. We're valuable if we achieve and inadequate if we don't. But that's complete nonsense. That's an irrational belief system that creates constant anxiety and depression. Here's what I want you to understand. You're not your behaviors. You're a complex, ever-changing human being who performs thousands of behaviors. Some of those behaviors are helpful. Some are unhelpful. Some are wise. Some are foolish. But none of them define your essential worth as a person. You have worth simply because you're alive and conscious. That's it. Your worth cannot be increased by achievements. Your worth cannot be decreased by failures. You're a fallible human being having an experience. Full stop. Now I can hear some of you saying, "But Albert, that sounds like I'm letting myself off the hook. Like I can just do whatever and it doesn't matter." No, that's not what I'm saying at all. Listen carefully. You can rate your behaviors without rating yourself. You can say, "That behavior was unhelpful. That choice was foolish. That action caused harm. I need to do better." But you don't say, "Therefore I am a bad person. Therefore I am worthless. Therefore I am unlovable." See the difference? You're evaluating the behavior, not condemning the person. This is crucial. Most people operate on conditional worth. They say, "I'm worthy if I'm successful. I'm valuable if people respect me. I'm good if I meet my standards. And this creates constant anxiety. What if I fail? What if they don't respect me? What if I don't meet my standards? And when you do fail, when they don't respect you, when you don't meet your standards, you experience devastating depression because you've tied your worth to external conditions. You've made yourself fragile. Unconditional self-acceptance says, I'm a fallible human being having an experience. Sometimes I'll succeed. Sometimes I'll fail. Sometimes people will respect me. Sometimes they won't. Sometimes I'll meet my standards. Sometimes I won't. And none of that changes my basic worth as a person. I accept myself unconditionally. Now let me show you how to actually practice this, because theory is useless without application. The next time someone disrespects you, I want you to do this. First, notice the activating event. They dismissed you. They ignored you. They criticized you. Whatever. That's A. Second, catch your irrational belief. Notice what you're telling yourself. They must respect me. This proves I'm worthless. I can't stand this. That's B. Third, dispute that belief. Ask yourself, where's the evidence that they must respect me? Show me the law of the universe that says people must treat me the way I want. Where's the proof that their opinion defines my worth? Am I really worthless as a person because one person doesn't respect me? Can I really not stand this? Or is it just uncomfortable? Challenge those irrational beliefs hard. Fourth, replace them with rational beliefs. I prefer respect, but I don't need it. Their opinion doesn't define my worth. I can accept myself even when others don't accept me. This is uncomfortable, but I can absolutely stand it. I've stood uncomfortable things before, and I'll stand this too. And fifth, act according to your values. Maybe you respond with dignity. Maybe you set a boundary. Maybe you just move on. But you're not acting from desperation or rage. You're acting from self-respect. When you accept yourself unconditionally, everything changes. Criticism doesn't devastate you anymore. You can hear feedback without collapsing. You can admit mistakes without shame. You can take healthy risks because failure doesn't define you. You stop performing for others because you're not trying to prove your worth. You live authentically. You show up as yourself. And paradoxically, that's when people start naturally respecting you. Not because you demanded it, but because you stopped needing it so desperately. Let me share something vulnerable with me. Early in my career, I received brutal criticism. Established psychologists said I was destroying the field. They mocked my ideas. They questioned my competence. And initially, it stung. But I practiced what I'm teaching you. I accepted myself as a fallible human being doing my best work. I acknowledged their right to disagree. I didn't demand they change their minds. I didn't try to force them to respect me. I just continued the work because I believed in it. And you know what happened? Some came around. Some never did. And that was okay, because my worth wasn't dependent on their approval. Now I know what some of you are thinking. This sounds like you're telling me to be a doormat, to let people treat me however they want. Wrong. Dead wrong. Unconditional self-acceptance doesn't mean accepting others' bad behavior. In fact, it's the foundation for setting powerful boundaries. Let me explain the difference. There's a crucial difference between demanding respect and assertively requesting it. Demands come from desperation. They're trying to control others. They say, you must treat me this way, or you're a terrible person and I can't stand it. Assertions come from self-respect. They clearly communicate your boundaries. They say, I prefer to be treated this way, and if you continue treating me that way, here are the consequences. One pushes people away. The other draws respect. Let me show you the 3 response styles. First, there's passive. This is, I don't matter. I'll accept anything. I'm not worthy of respect. This allows disrespect. It builds resentment inside you. And people lose respect for you because you don't respect yourself enough to set boundaries. Second, there's aggressive or demanding. This is, you must respect me. How dare you treat me this way? I'm going to make you see my worth. This tries to control others. It creates conflict. People resist and resent you. Third, there's assertive. This is, I prefer respect, and I won't tolerate disrespect. This states your preference clearly. It sets boundaries calmly. It enforces consequences without drama. And it respects both yourself and others. Let me give you the language of assertion because this is practical. Instead of demanding like, You must stop interrupting me. You're so rude. How dare you? Try this. State the behavior. You've interrupted me 3 times. Express your preference. I prefer to finish my thoughts. Set the boundary. If this continues, I'll end this conversation. And then follow through calmly. No rage. No drama. No lecture about how they should respect you. Just a calm consequence. This is powerful because you're not trying to make them respect you. You're not trying to control their thoughts or feelings. You're simply deciding what behavior you will accept in your life. And if they don't meet that standard, you enforce the consequence. You leave the conversation. You end the relationship. You set limits on your time with them. Not out of anger, not out of desperation, but out of self-respect. Here's what boundaries without enforcement actually are. They're suggestions. They're meaningless. If you say, I don't like when you talk to me that way, but then you continue engaging, you continue accepting it, you continue giving them your time and energy, you haven't set a boundary. You've just complained. Real boundaries require enforcement. But that enforcement doesn't require anger. It doesn't require lectures. It doesn't require demands that they see your worth. It just requires calm consequences. Let me give you examples. I've asked you to stop. Since you haven't, I'm leaving. Or, this working relationship isn't meeting my needs. I'm ending it. Or, I don't tolerate being spoken to that way. We can continue when you're ready to be civil. See how calm that is. See how it's not desperate? You're not trying to change them. You're not demanding they respect you. You're just deciding what you will and won't accept. And here's what happens when you assertively set boundaries. You demonstrate self-respect. You show emotional stability. You prove you're not desperate. And you command respect through your behavior, not through your demands. People naturally respect those who respect themselves enough to walk away from disrespect. They respect people who don't need them. They respect people who have standards and actually enforce them. I worked with patients over the years who were in abusive situations, not just romantic relationships, but work environments, family dynamics. And one of the most powerful things I could teach them was, you don't have to convince your abuser that you deserve better treatment. You don't have to make them see your worth. You just have to decide you're worth more than this, and then leave. Set the boundary and enforce it. And it's amazing how often, once people did that, the other person either changed their behavior or revealed themselves as not worthy of being in that person's life. Either outcome is a win. All right, so you understand philosophy now. You get why demanding respect backfires. You understand unconditional self-acceptance. You know how to set assertive boundaries. But how do you actually build the kind of life where respect flows naturally? That's what I want to give you now. The practical path forward. Stop focusing on getting respect. Start focusing on giving respect to yourself and to others. When you live according to your values, contribute meaningfully, and treat others with dignity, respect becomes a natural byproduct, not a desperate goal. Let me break this down into practical steps. First, live a values-based life. Instead of constantly asking, are they respecting me? Start asking, am I living according to my values? Identify what you actually stand for. Maybe it's integrity. Maybe it's contribution. Maybe it's growth, compassion, excellence, whatever. Make decisions based on those values. Measure your success by your own standards, not others' approval. When your focus shifts from getting to being, respect follows naturally. Because you're no longer performing for an audience. You're living authentically. Second, focus on contribution. People naturally respect those who solve problems, add value, help others, master their craft, and deliver results. Stop obsessing over whether people respect you. Start obsessing over becoming competent, helpful, and reliable. Be so good at what you do that respect becomes inevitable. Now, I'm not saying respect is guaranteed. Some people still won't respect you. But your odds go way up when you're actually contributing value rather than demanding recognition. Here's what I learned building REBT. I didn't demand that the psychological community accept it. I didn't demand they respect me. I just did the work. I published research showing it worked. I trained therapists who got results with their patients. I treated thousands of people effectively. I proved the outcomes. And the respect came after the work, not before. I built credibility through contribution, not through demands. Third, treat others with dignity. Here's a paradox that might surprise you. The more you genuinely respect others, not as a strategy, but as a practice, the more they respect you. Listen without interrupting. Acknowledge their perspective even when you disagree. Admit when you're wrong. Give credit generously. Assume good intent until proven otherwise. This isn't weakness. This is the ultimate strength. It shows you're secure enough to honor others without diminishing yourself. Insecure people tear others down to build themselves up. Secure people lift others up because they're not threatened by other success. Fourth, play the long game. Respect isn't built in a day. It's built through consistent behavior over time. Keeping your word. Handling failure with grace. Showing up when it's hard. Being the same person in public and in private. Following through on commitments. Treating people well even when they can't do anything for you. Stop looking for immediate respect. Start building a respectable life. The respect will come. Maybe not from everyone. Maybe not right away. But it will come. And here's the thing. When you're living this way, when you're focused on your values, contributing meaningfully, treating others well, building a respectable life, you stop caring so much about whether every single person respects you. Because you respect yourself. You know your worth. You know you're living with integrity. And if someone doesn't see that, that's their problem, not yours. You're not desperate for their validation. You're too busy living well. So let's bring this all together because I want you walking away from this with absolute clarity on what to do differently starting today. You came here probably frustrated, maybe even angry about the disrespect you've been experiencing. And I've told you something you didn't want to hear. The problem isn't them. It's you. Specifically, it's your irrational demand that they must respect you. Let me recap the core truth. Demanding respect broadcasts insecurity and creates the very disrespect you fear. It puts your self-worth in others' hands, which is exhausting and fragile and sets you up for constant disappointment. The alternative? Unconditional self-acceptance. You accept yourself as a fallible human being regardless of others' opinions. You stop rating yourself and start rating your behaviors as helpful or unhelpful. You recognize that you have worth simply because you're alive and conscious, and that worth can't be increased or decreased by achievements or others' approval. From that foundation of self-acceptance, you set assertive boundaries, not aggressive demands, but calm statements of what behavior you will and won't accept. You enforce those boundaries through action, not anger. No drama, no lectures, just consequences. And most importantly, you shift your focus from getting respect to earning it. You do this by living your values, contributing meaningfully, treating others with genuine dignity, and playing the long game of building a respectable life through consistent behavior over time. Will everyone respect you? No, and that's okay. You don't need universal respect to live a great life. You just need to respect yourself enough to walk away from those who consistently disrespect you without making a catastrophe. So here's your challenge for the next week. Catch yourself every time you feel that surge of, they should respect me, they must treat me better, I need their approval. Notice it. That's your irrational belief. Dispute it. Ask yourself, where's the evidence they must? Show me the law of the universe. Replace it with a rational belief. I prefer respect, but I don't need it to survive. I can accept myself even when others don't. See what happens. I think you'll be surprised. You'll feel lighter, less anxious, less angry, more in control of your own emotional life. Now, if you found this valuable, here's what I want you to do next. I've got another video that's going to blow your mind. It's called Why Your Anger is a Choice and How to Stop Choosing It. Because here's what I haven't told you yet. That rage you feel when people disrespect you, it's not automatic. It's not inevitable. You're actively choosing it through your beliefs, and I'm going to show you exactly how to stop. This is the missing piece that ties everything together. We're going to dive deep into how your beliefs create your anger, why anger feels good in the moment but destroys you long-term, and the specific techniques to dismantle anger at its source. This is practical. This is powerful. This will change your life. Click the video on your screen right now. Don't wait. The longer you wait, the more likely you are to fall back into old patterns of demanding respect, getting angry when you don't get it, and suffering unnecessarily. I'll see you there. Let's finish what we started.